Yep, looking after this afternoon experience for Tony Fisher this week. Hi, I'm Rob Jelly. Welcome along. Now, my next guest has a car history that I think even someone like Jamiroquai would be jealous of. And stupidly, because it's the sort of person I am, I've read the book and thought, oh, do you know what? I'm going to bring that in and I'm going to ask him about this, ask him about that, and ask, what do you think I've done with it? Yep, I've left it indoors because I'm an absolute plonker. But Michael Hipperson has joined me this afternoon in the studio to have a chat about the book. Afternoon, Michael.
Hello there.
Are you well?
I am well, and it doesn't seem 2.5 years since I was here last.
No, it was. Well, I was just looking back at this because this is the second of, I guess, a two-part book, really.
It is. The first book sort of charted my life with cars from 1965 to 85.
Yeah.
And that sold really well, unbelievably well.
Did you always intend to do it in two?
I didn't intend to do two. I thought I'd try one and just see what the reaction was. And I thought, well, you know, if I could sell a couple hundred copies and the money would go to charity, that would be fine. But in actual fact, we've so far sold 2,500 and it's into its third reprint.
That's fantastic stuff. Now, we're talking about a book called Let Them Stare, which was the first one.
That's correct.
And the new one, Let Them Stare Again.
Yep.
Now, the reason it's called that, and I think it's quite an obvious thing, is you have got, as I say, a history of cars that is very much of those ilk where if you see it driving past you, you turn your head. A lot of the cars you have owned and driven in your life have been very much head turners.
They have been head turners, and I think also I was brought up in the 60s and 70s, and you never ever saw exotic cars then because they were relatively expensive, and you know, people in those days didn't borrow money to buy cars, and if you didn't have the money, you didn't get the car.
You didn't own it.
No,
yeah.
That's right. So you could go, you could go probably months and years without seeing a Ferrari on the road. You know, now you see them on quite a regular basis.
Yeah, so you only go to Brentwood and you probably see one this afternoon if you stand there long enough.
Probably outside Sugar Hut or something.
Yeah, very probably. So give us a little recap then of book one. Book one was 1965 to 1985, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got my first car in 65, so I passed my tests in 65 and got a mini pickup. It was a Morris Minor pickup then. Then I progressed to a Triumph Herald. Then I went to a Triumph Spitfire. And then it started to get a bit better after that. I went to a Lotus Elan, had two Elans. And then I suppose the big step was in 1972 when my dad and I went to look at a Ferrari up in Cheshire.
Yeah.
And it was actually a Ferrari GTO. And the price was $6,250. Now, Dad didn't like moving out of Essex.
Right.
So we get in Mum's Sunbeam Tiger, we drive up, and we meet this bloke who's quite a well-known dealer. I don't mention his name.
No, fair enough.
And he had a strange accent, a northern accent. Now, we're from Essex, so we speak Essex.
Yep.
So Dad said, I don't know about this bloke. He said, here we are, we're buying a WAP car, which he used to call Italian cars.
Yeah.
And the bloke's got a funny accent. And so we looked at this car, $6,250. And he said, no, don't want it. So we came home.
Just like that? Just like that?
Just like that. Now, that car today has recently been sold for £32 million. So
shut up. £32 million for a car?
For a car. Because the Ferrari GTO...
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Michael. I just realised I said the word "shut up" to you. But £32 million.
Yeah, there's 36 Ferrari GTOs, and they've started to go crazy. I think Nick Mason bought...
No, I'm so sorry. I don't understand how that is a sum of money that you'd spend on a car.
Well, that's how it is, and I think there was one sold for 48...
That is genuinely throwing me right off. I'm so sorry.
Anyway,
I can't even comprehend that.
Well, anyway, we didn't buy it, so it's neither here nor there. But it was a bit of a, I think, looking back on it, it was a bit of a mistake. So anyway, we then decided that we'd look at a Ford GT40, which we did, and I went to London to see it. It was £4,600. That car today is worth $5 million, by the way. And we went up to London, and I saw this really nice guy, Julian Seddon. I think he was a society photographer, and he said, let's go up the roads. We went along the Westway.
Yeah.
Quite high speed, I think 120 or something. And I bought it. I shook his hand. I said, I'll come back tomorrow with a banker's draft.
Yeah.
You can't use a banker's draft today.
No.
So shook his hand, came back the next day, and I then got in this GT40, which I'd never driven. And it had run in Le Mans in 1965. So it was in full Le Mans gear. The tyres were covered with script that said not for use on the road.
On the road, yeah.
And
so this is 1972. This is
72, yeah. So then.
So this is so you're hang on. I'm just trying to do the quick maths here. 7 years after you passed your driving test.
Yes.
You've looked at buying a Ferrari.
Yes.
And you've just bought a GT40.
Yes.
I was still driving a really banged up third hand, possibly Renault Clio, when I was 7 years into my driving.
Well, I was
life.
I was lucky.
That was my first car as well,
Yeah.
actually, thinking about it. That lasted a while.
And anyway, we bought the GT40, and then I said to Dad, I'm really fancy a Ferrari. Can I go and look at this one in a place called Steeple Bumstead, which is near Haverhill? So I rang the chappie up, and I was only young. I was, 25? And I said, I'm interested in your Ferrari, because I'd seen it in a local garage being repaired, because he was a farmer. And a tractor had reversed into it and knocked his bumper off. So I saw it being repaired in Finchleyfield. So I said to the chappie in Finchleyfield, the owner of the garage, I said, if that ever comes up for sale, I said, can you call me?
Let me know, yeah.
Yeah. So it was about a year later, and I worked at Wethersford Air Base for a while in the parts store, and I was going to work in my Elan, and this Ferrari, which I'd seen in the garage, came towards me at such a huge speed, and I thought, I've got to have
want that,
car.
yeah.
So I went back to Cyril. I said, Cyril Webley, his name was. I said, next time he comes in, a farmer owned it, a chap called Ian Yates. I said, if you see that car up for sale, you must let me know. So anyway, months went by, and I got a call from Ian Yates, the owner. And he said, Michael, I said, yeah. He said, do you want to buy my car? And I said, yeah. So he said, and I was only a youngster, Essex boy, youngster.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, well, how much is it? And he said, well, I want £2,600 for it. And I said, okay, I'll have it. And he said, well, do you want to see it or drive it? I said, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've heard it. I love it.
Yeah, I want it.
I want it. So we did a deal over the phone. And I said, I'll be in over the next day with the money, because I lived in Headingham at the time, so it's not far. So we went over and got it. And when I got home, my wife at the time was a bit cross because I paid.
Really? That was probably an understatement, if I'm being honest.
Because I paid for the car roughly what our house cost. And so she got the hump a bit. Anyway, a bit of research into the car. It was silver, and I wanted it painted red, like all Ferraris should be red.
Yep.
So
agreed.
I had a garage at the time, and I put it in the paint shop. Anyway, the next day, Gordon, who used to do my painting, said, Governor, he said, you better come and have a look at this. I thought, oh my God.
Oh no, what they've done,
yeah. Cut and shut, or is it, what I mean? So I went, he said, it's aluminium. I said, what? So this is a Ferrari 275 GTB, 2-cam, long nose, and you're telling me it's aluminium. He said, there is. I said, there's no such car. So I rushed home, got my book out, and there were 6 right-hand drive in the whole world. And I thought, blimey. So anyway, I kept it a couple of years. I sold it for a good profit. And then when I was researching my book, I saw the car for sale.
Yeah.
The actual car.
The one you owned?
Yeah, 08219. I mean, I'm an anorak with Ferraris. And so I rang the dealer, Talicrest, and I said, that was my car. Can I come down and have a look at it? And he said, yeah, of course you can. So I took a man down, and we did a video of it, me walking around the car, and it was called Man Reunited with His Ferrari After 43 Years, which I hadn't seen it for 43 years. So we just had a brilliant video, and I sent it to the dealer who'd got the car.
Yeah. And
he said, Michael, redo it, put my name in it twice, Talicrest, the company.
Yeah.
He said, I'll make a contribution to any charity, of my choice. So I said, well, okay, I'll do that. So I did it, sent it to him, and he loved it. And I just had 2 doses of cancer. And look, I was looked after brilliantly at Addenbrooke's. That's why I'm still here. And he then said, well, who shall I make who do you want it made to? I said, well, Addenbrooke's Charitable Trust. I said, they're trying to build up this, charity. So he sent them 10,000 quid, and I was over the moon, because that sort of thing just doesn't happen.
No.
So I was over the moon with him, and then the rest of the proceeds of the book went to Little Havens Children's Hospice.
Which I know you do a lot of charity work for.
Yeah, we do a lot for them.
You do a lot of events and hold a lot of sort of charity nights, don't you, for them?
Yeah, so that book, which was really, I did because I got cancer and I thought I was going to die, raised 17,000 for charity, which was about 6 or 7 times more than we thought it would.
That's incredible. And so the book number 2, the one that I've had the privilege of reading through, starts in 85, picks up where you left off as number 1, and then takes you up to. So it came out this year.
It came out this year, and it takes.
Does it include up to last year's sort of?
Yeah, it gets up quite close. But you know, times have changed. I was very fortunate to live through the 60s and 70s with cars, where there was hardly any cars on the road. You go, do whatever you like. You didn't come around a corner and see a revenue camera, making sure you weren't doing 33 miles an hour and all that sort of thing. And it was just, it was a magical time, really. So the second book, from 85 on, it's a different type of book.
Yeah, of course,
The cars are modern. We then moved into an era where if you bought an expensive car, it depreciated like crazy.
Yeah. Well, you make mention to the sort of cost that you lose every week.
That's right.
On the cars nowadays.
Which I wasn't used to, because in the 60s and 70s, it held the value, and you could almost, make a good profit. I mean, I remember going down in 74 to see Twiggy, who'd got her Lamborghini Miura for sale, and nobody wanted a Lamborghini Miura, It was absolutely stunning, but there was a fuel crisis. Yeah, you couldn't get fuel. Luckily, I had my own garage. You couldn't get fuel, and so I bought that, and it was just.
So what are you driving now?
Well, I came today in a Peugeot 207 diesel.
Yes, rock and roll.
So, but things have changed a lot now. Motoring is much more expensive.
Yeah, of course. Now, is there anything that you've ever wanted and never, just the opportunity never arose, or you missed out on an opportunity to get something that you look back on now and go, that is the one I missed?
In my first book, I've got a chapter called The Ones That Got Away. And there are 6 cars that I was a bit silly not to buy. Obviously, the GTO was up there. Yeah. There was I
feel for you on that one, honestly.
There's an AC Cobra 427, which is as rare as hen's teeth.
Yeah.
That had belonged to Dean Martin's son, and it had done 80 miles.
I can't even begin to imagine the number that you might say at an auction for that sort of thing.
What we did was my brother and I went halves on it. So we did actually buy it, 4,000 quid each. So it was £8,000, but we couldn't afford to keep it. It was a lot of money then. So we sold it to a German. I think we made £1,000. But I think within a few months he'd made 40,000. So he was the bright guy there.
Yeah.
And then I also had my eye on something called an Iso Griffo Bizzarini, which was a... you're shaking your head.
No, you've definitely been to a realm I don't know.
Which is a beautiful Italian car with a Chevy Corvette engine. And we went to see a well-known writer. I think he wrote quite a lot of stuff on the T. His name was Jeremy Lloyd. And we went to see him in London, and... he let us start the car. He said, I can't let you drive it.
No.
It was gorgeous, but he wanted £1,800 for it. And we only had 1,500, so we couldn't buy it.
Yeah.
That car's probably 800,000 today. So that was another one that was missed. And then another horror was an Aston Martin DB2, which was quite an early car, early Aston. Not the prettiest, but a woman had said to me, oh, my mate's got an old Aston in the garage, do you want to go and have a look at it? So I went to have a look at it, and it's an ugly thing. And anyway, I bought the car for 200, and I sold it for 400. It's left-hand drive, so that was okay.
Yeah, you're winning.
Then the bloke that bought it came back to see me a few months later. He said, Michael, you know that car? I said, yes. He said, do you know who owned it before? And I said, no. He said, Tommy Simpson. Now, Tommy Simpson might not mean much to you, but he was a Tour de France winner. He actually died on Mont Ventoux, during the race. So that car probably went on to make, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Today, probably $1 million. And the other one, I'll just tell you quickly.
Yeah, go on.
Just
one more.
I had a chap knock on my door one day, and he said, you were looking for a Lamborghini, weren't you? And I said, I really would like a Lamborghini. He said, I know where there is one. It's at Aythorpe Roding. It's in a barn. Chap wants to sell it. I went to see it. Gorgeous thing. It's called a Lamborghini. It's 1968 400 GT. So I bought it, ran it round, and a chap bought it from me. He kept it for another 30 years. And he said, oh, by the way, Michael, he said, do you know who owned that car? I said, I don't know who owned the car. I said, but it was one of 4 right-hand drive.
Wow.
Paul McCartney. So I have made I've had fun, but I've also made some errors.
It is, honestly, it's such a fascinating read, the second. I'm going to get a copy of the first one because I need to now fill in the first sort of 20 years of your driving life, because the second book is amazing.
I'll send you one.
That is very
I'll
kind.
send you
Let
one.
them stare.
FOC.
Let them stare and let them stare again. Both available now. Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure. I could talk to you until 4 o'clock, but I think I'll get told off by everyone involved in this show. It's been an absolute pleasure. Where can we can find your book online?
Yeah, if you just Google "Let Them Stare" book.
Yep.
If you just put "Let Them Stare" in, you'll end up in a Russian fashion house in Moscow. So it's "Let Them Stare"
book.
Yeah.
And you can find a copy of it. I thoroughly recommend it if you've got even the slightest interest in cars in any shape or form. Motorsport, road cars, get a copy of it. It's incredible. Michael, thanks so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.